Apple has teased the iPhone 16e for quite a while and now have finally announced it officially. But is it really the latest iPhone with the best price as Apple has claimed? Judging from the specs and some of the actions leading up to its announcement, there might be just more to this phone that meets the eye. Let's begin with the design, which clearly resembles the iPhone XR from 7 years ago but with flatter, sharper edges and a larger camera sensor at the back. At the front is the old notch we're used to from before the iPhone 14 was launched. Honestly, that was to be expected, and anyone who thought it would come with a dynamic island notch was probably wishing for too much. This is Apple we're talking about after all. I would say the phone doesn't look bad at all for what it is, but at the grand price of $600, they could have at least added a second sensor at the back. Still, it is singular 48 megapixels is good enough. Around the screen are thicker bezels which are a stark contrast to the other phones in the 16 lineup, which have clearly slimmer bezels. The 16e is a slim phone at 7.8 mm though, and is held together by a very solid aluminum frame. Overall, it is not a bad design, and it is actually the best looking SE phone so far, in my opinion. Moving on to the actual display, it is 2025, and Apple have stubbornly kept the 16Hz refresh rate on the $600 iPhone 16e. This decision is honestly ridiculous. Yes, their phones run a lot better and smoother than the competition, but they could have at least given it a 90Hz refresh rate, if only to check that box. It's a shame too, because the actual 6.1-inch OLED display is not bad at all, with a peak brightness of 1200 nits. It could be better, but it is a solid figure. The screen itself is made of ceramic shield glass, which should offer decent protection against accidental drops. Regardless, it is advised to get a screen protector, notwithstanding the advertised screen durability. The rear camera on the phone is a 48 megapixel sensor, and the front comes with a standard 12 megapixel lens. These are all on paper specs, and actual camera performance will depend on a whole host of other factors. So we'll just have to wait and see until the first few units are shipped. I wouldn't worry about the camera though, as Apple have proven over the years how consistently good their camera quality is. If there is one area where they don't cut corners, it is camera quality. Now the main problem I have with the phone, as do most people, is the pricing and some of the decisions made regarding the specs. Fine, it is cheaper than the flagships, so they have to cut corners somewhere, but still, some of the compromises are just extreme. As said before, a 60Hz display at this price is unheard of. Even ultra-budget phones that cost a fraction of the price ship with at least 90Hz refresh rate. Also, on paper, it has the same A18 chip, but features a 4-core GPU instead of the 5-core GPUs on its older siblings. That's a shame, because one of the selling points of the SE models has been their respectable performance compared to their respective lineups. But with this, Apple have decided to make some compromises. Earlier, I said it was the best looking SE, but that's simply because the competition is not top-notch. Apple could have done so much better with this phone, especially on the front. Keeping the notch was not a surprising move, but they could have reduced its size, as well as the bezels, to give it a more modern look. Now, it just resembles the older iPhone 13 from 4 years ago. There are some other missing features, such as MagSafe and certain types of 5G support, but those can be overlooked as they are mostly synonymous with the flagships, however popular they may be. From the perspective of a potential buyer, it doesn't even make sense to purchase this device. Apple has cleverly discontinued the iPhone 14 and the old iPhone SE, which were priced at around $599 and $429 respectively. Price-wise, those were the only similar phones to the iPhone 16e. This appears to be a ploy to convince customers to go with the new 16e instead. Still, it is not a good deal, all things considered, especially when you start looking at the huge price jumps when storage options are increased. If you're like most people who use up their storage quickly, you'll want to get the 512 GB storage option, right? Well, for that, you will have to pay an extra $300, bringing the phone's price to $900. Like I said, not a good deal at all. It almost seems like the iPhone 16e is here to serve another purpose, to encourage people to opt for the proper flagships in the 16 lineup. This is all speculation, but it would make a lot of sense. I imagine that if you intended to buy the 16e and realized you could just pay a bit more to get proper flagship 16, you would prefer to do that. It could really be a marketing trick, but we'll never know. Still, having said all this, I do think the 16e will do well. It is Apple after all, and they have way more hits than misses. I expect the price to slowly drop after a while, at which point it will become a real phone to consider, especially for Android users who might want to switch or for users who would otherwise buy a refurbished or used iPhone. Let us know what you think in the comments. Will the iPhone 16e do well?